love in the building. Yo, shall we take them? I told them up the block. The fall back, dope fiends is dropping, crackheads bugging on Prozac. Whoa, ghetto celebs, sharks can threads, chicks we don't them unless we take them like 3 in the bed.
Gun in hand, making moves in Japan, living off land, half a kilo in the closet, sitting on grams. CU be the brand, crack your shell like clams. If we don't know you, we'll blow you only with fam. Historical name, Theodore, nigga, we be the Roosevelts. Shoot flames.
Hey, what up, G Team? Let's go ahead and end this now. So that I should probably end that if I want the tag. Alright. So that was the end credits for I Am a Hero. If you guys don't remember, I did a reaction to the trailer a few months ago, but the movie came out last year, if I remember correctly. Or I did it. No. I did a reaction to it last year, I think. Yeah, I did a reaction to the trailer last summer, I think it was. And so yeah, you can see it right there. I Am a Hero. So I literally just got finished watching it. I've also the manga actually ended last month. Yeah, the manga actually ended last month. I finished reading the manga as well. So I've got some good. I've actually finished everything on this now. So I'm a little more informed on the story now than I was. So I Am a Hero was actually, it was interesting. They went naturally. They do this with all live. Well, not all, but pretty much. They do this with like pretty much every live action adaptation, which is that they usually take a kind of different take on the story, or a different not take, but a different perspective. Sometimes they go from a different perspective. Sometimes with the story, and they did it as well in this one. And I can kind of understand some of the stuff because you're condensing. At the time, I think they filmed this movie came out it came out last year. That's what I thought. So it came out last year. It was about so they probably filmed it in, I believe it came out in like May or something, May or June last year, which means they were probably filming it. Because this is summer, this looks very warm where they're filming it. So it was probably in the fall of 2015, just to be on the safe side. And the story's been around since around 2009 or 2011. I forget which one. Naturally, that's about 2 years of manga or a year and a half. Sorry, that's about a year and a half worth of manga that wasn't even available at the time that this had been done. And so naturally, the movie ends earlier than the movie ends earlier than the manga, which is fine, because it does leave it open-ended, which I like. There was an open-ended ending. And it was like straight out open-ended. This was just like, this is like almost the beginning of a new thing, pretty much. Which I like. I actually like that. That's actually very good because both the manga and the manga kind of has an open-ended ending. Not in terms of the ZQN, but in terms of most other things. It leaves a lot of things very open. And the movie leaves it up for continuation as well. And that's actually a very good thing. One thing I've had I've had complaints about with especially Japanese movies where they adapt something. They adapt a property that is still going, is that they try to wrap it up in this nice, neat little bow. Attack on Titan is a perfect example of this. Attack on Titan was one that did that. What's another one I can think of? I can't think of any off the top of my head besides that one. But that was definitely... Oh! Prince of Tennis. Prince of Tennis... Well, no, Prince of Tennis didn't... Prince of Tennis did not wrap everything up in a bow. That was open-ended, but they tried to rush like a year's worth of stuff into 2 hours or something like that. Or no, not a year, like 6 months worth of stuff, and they just did it very poorly. But I really can't think of... Space Battleship Yamato was one. There we go. Space Battleship Yamato and whatever the other one is I pointed out earlier. I can't... Oh, Attack on Titan. And they just tried to wrap those up into neat little bows within the amount of movies that they had. And that came out as that was a disaster both times. Well, not Space Battleship Yamato. That was actually a pretty decent film. But usually when the pacing is off, that's a very bad thing. And with this, the pacing was not very bad. So I give them credit for that. They did take a lot of liberties with Hideo's, with the kind of things that happened to Hideo and Hiromi. But I can see why, because once again, yeah, they occurred over an amount of weeks. I want to say it was days or weeks that this stuff happened to them that the movie covers. But yeah, there's a but you're trying to condense some of that stuff. Like, for example, for example, Hideo had an issue. Oh, no, that's right. So, Hiromi actually gets, here's a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen I Am a Hero or read it. Hiromi actually gets bitten while she's with him. And, she gets bitten the exact same way. It's by a baby. They're on their way to Mount Fuji, and she gets bitten by a baby, and so they've already been together for days now, and so he's already like developing feelings for her, and that's why he doesn't actually do it. Why he doesn't actually like even really try to kill her. He waits to see what happens. One thing I do like, too, is that they did give him kind of an explanation as to why he doesn't immediately jump up and try to kill her. I mean, one, it's not really in his character to do that, but two, also, he got bitten by his girlfriend, but they established that early on in the movie that because it was just her gums that bit him, and therefore didn't break any skin, he was fine, which is fine. They established that in the manga. That's exactly what happens. And they had him, like, one thing then they did actually, they had to do all this character progress that he really doesn't start to develop until very, very late in the series. So yeah, they had to rush a lot of stuff. Like, even by this point, even by the point that happens in the movie, like, he was just starting to develop courage to stand up and everything. So that's something as well. That's something definitely to look at as well. So how do I feel about I Am a Hero as a movie? It was pretty good. It was a pretty good movie. as an adaptation, it was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but the changes are understandable. Well, the changes are very understandable. They also made Hiromi. They also made it. I feel like they made it more obvious that Hiromi was a ZQN in the movie, because in the series, in the actual manga series, it wasn't. I feel like it wasn't all that obvious unless you actually looked at her, like unless you paid attention to her mannerisms. Because after she gets bitten, she like zones out basically. There's this whole period where she's just zoned out, but she responds to very small things in the environment around her. Most notably, whenever Hideo is in danger, or someone's like calling out to her or something like that. And so yeah, they immediately, like, they had her eye all glassed over and like that. But in the manga, I feel like it wasn't that obvious. It really was not that obvious. And I kind of like what they did with the voices, because that's often the very first clue in the series as to how people get how you know someone's infected. Is that all of a sudden in the manga, like, their voice changes and it starts getting all weird, and you're like, and it's like, oh shoot, like there was a part where Iori, I think it was, one of the guys at the mall, like, he starts to, like, repeat himself or something like that, and he starts droning out words like right, no, and it's like, that's where you're like, oh and that happens in the manga, like, almost exactly like that. You're just like, oh shoot, he got bit. So that was actually that. I kind of like what they did with that as well. But yeah, kudos on doing a pretty decent job on adapting this pretty well, especially in only one movie. That's actually, they did a pretty decent job on this. So for anyone who likes the series, go ahead and watch it. If you like movies, definitely watch it. You're not going to notice anything terrible if you haven't seen the manga or anything like that. But for those who like the manga, definitely check it out. This is one of the ones that was actually a pretty decent adaptation. It was very enjoyable if you like the movie. Very, very enjoyable. A lot of things are the same. In fact, there's one of my favorite scenes, actually. Yeah, my favorite scene in the entire movie is the part when like, everything's just collapsing, and like, in Tokyo. Everything in Tokyo is just collapsing. And in the manga, this was very drawn out. It was because in the manga, him and the other guy actually escape. And then it's while they're going through the street that his buddy actually ends up getting bitten. And it was just by chance, like complete chance. But that was definitely one of in the movie, it was a very short scene, but it was, oh my God, it was actually, now that I think about it, this movie brings out a lot of, this movie is the movie, not necessarily the manga, even though everything is from the manga, but the movie itself, the way it's done, is very reminiscent of other zombie flicks. Like, most notably, I think the one that really most noticeable for me was the scene that I was just talking about, when he's leaving the manga office and he's just running. He's running through the streets of Tokyo, and like, stuff is just chaotic. And that reminds me of the opening scene of Believe It or Not, the Dawn of the Dead remake. That was actually that's what it reminds me of. Like all the stuff that was happening, it was very well done. That part was extremely well done, and that was actually really cool. That was really really cool the way that was done. Absolutely my favorite scene in the entire movie. I was just in awe that entire time. There was, I was a little disappointed with one scene in the taxi, because in the manga, it's actually really funny. There's a lot of funny things that happen in this, but and that's mostly because it's stuff that happens in the manga. But there's a part in the taxi where in the manga, what happens, or I was looking forward to seeing how this was going to happen in the movie, but it is kind of, once again, it's another very long and drawn out scene in the manga. I think it's like 2 or 3 chapters that they're in this taxi in the manga, or maybe even 5 chapters. But anyway, so Hideo and I think Hiromi was he? No, he didn't meet her yet. No. So it was just Hideo. So Hideo is in the taxi going to the countryside with this guy who stole a taxi from him. But in the movie, they added Hiromi in there in the taxi as well. So in this, so when he gets in the taxi, this guy is like going off about how poor people are scum and all this stuff, and like you can see in the manga, like he's starting to become like, you're starting to realize, oh shoot, he's been bitten, and like Hideo's just sitting in the corner, just like sweating his nutsack off, and like okay, and like trying to stay as far into the corner as possible. And he's just watching this happen. And the guy just starts transforming into this thing. And Hideo's just like still in this corner. And this happens forever. Like he's just in this corner. And like the guy never actually like seems to notice Hideo. And yeah, so that was, and now that I think about it, it was way too drawn out to do. But they did do that in the movie. And they actually shortened that scene by a lot in the movie. Because I remember that in the manga just being like, why are you not doing anything, Hideo? Like, why are you not like trying to throw this guy out of the taxi or something? So, yeah, that was actually an interesting scene too. But yeah, definitely check it out if you like the manga I Am a Hero. If you haven't read it, it's an interesting manga. The ending is very, very odd though. Once you get to the third arc, the third arc? Is it the third arc? I think it's the third arc. Yeah, once you get to the third arc, which is the Kurusu arc, it starts getting extremely weird, and that tends to be the case for manga that goes in this kind of direction. I mean, Gantz's last arc was extremely weird, and this is the exact same thing as well. So, and I expect that had High School of the Dead continued, it probably would have been just as weird. So, but yeah, so I give I Am a Hero a thumbs up. Good work on adapting this movie, guys. So if you like what you saw, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And until next time, be excellent to one another and party on, dudes. See you around.